Good morning. On behalf of Mayor Pro Tem Whitehead, the Commission, Manager Fuentes, and staff, welcome to the business meeting of the City Commission of the City of Truth and Consequences. It is now 9:01 on January 24th. I ask anyone who has a cell phone or any other type of electronic instrument that makes a noise, if you could just please turn that noise off, we would appreciate it. Madam Clerk, can we have roll call, please?
Honorable Steve Green.
Here.
Honorable Sandra Whitehead is absent. Honorable Kathy Clark is absent. Honorable Ralph Hessler.
Here.
Honorable Joshua Frankel.
Present.
Mr. Mayor, we have a quorum.
Thank you. And Madam Clerk, let the record show that Mayor Pro Tem Whitehead and Commissioner Clark did call me and told me that they would be not attending this meeting today. The next item is item number 2, silent meditation. Before we move into silent meditation, I would just like to make 2 announcements. One, Commissioner Fletcher, County Commissioner Fletcher is unfortunately in the hospital, and I ask you to keep her in your thoughts and prayers. And I had an email from Mayor Pro Tem Whitehead, and she asked me to read it before silent meditation. During silent meditation, I would ask that you keep the family of David Bubba Bryant in your prayers. He passed away on January 20th and will be greatly missed. David worked with the City of TRC Police Department from 1988 to 2002, where he served as chief from April 1999 to 2002. He was the nephew of the late Commissioner Freddie Torres and Commissioner Bobby Allen. So if you would keep all those and their families in your thoughts and prayers, it would be appreciated. Please join me for 15 seconds of silent meditation. Thank you very much. The next item is Pledge of Allegiance. Commissioner Franklin, could you lead us, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. The next item is approval of the agenda. We have some presentations here, some gentlemen who will be doing some presentations, and they are on a short schedule. So I would like, when we have approval of the agenda, to take presentations and put it as the next item, and then we will go and follow the format as listed. And on the consent calendar on that motion, I would like item number 6 and item number 7 postponed until a further meeting.
Is there any way that can be protested to stay to the original agenda?
The Commission does have the authority to has the authority to be flexible with the agenda. As long as you have everything listed that you're going to be talking about, you are allowed to approve the agenda with changes as you suggest. You're allowed to do that.
Okay, thank you. So that is what I'm looking for, a motion.
Mayor, I make a motion that we approve the agenda as you presented it.
I need a second. Second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carries unanimously. Next item will be the presentations from Spaceport, and our presenter is Chris Lopez, Vice President of Land Operations. Mr. Lopez.
Mayor Green, Commissioners, thank you so much, and good morning, everyone. Got some slides here for you. As I was putting this together and trying to think of it as an annual update for all of you, got a few more slides than I originally had planned for. So if you could give me a little bit of grace, and we may go through some of these slides quite quickly. We do have video clips included, but I'm hoping to give you a good picture, a good update of where we've come from very briefly, but also to what we've been working on over the last year. And I hope this is a lot of new information that hasn't been shared with you before. So moving forward. One item that you'll notice in our presentations over the last several months is we just do the bottom line up front. A lot of folks ask the big question, when are you going to open? The reality is we've been open for quite a while. We have over 100 rocket launches to date, so we do have quite a bit of success going out there. I'll be breaking down those launches here more as we go further in. Now that we're in the middle of the legislative season, I would like to draw your attention to the two requests that we do have. We are promoting new legislation, the Commercial Space Protection Act. I want to make something very clear on that act. That is not to make spaceport operations and forbid any of the IPRA requests that come through or the sunshine laws for the spaceport operations. This act is to try to keep us up to date with similar states who are competing for spaceline business, such as Florida and Virginia, that has similar legislation to protect some of the information that the private companies are deemed as critical to their success. Think of it as a way of Ford certainly wouldn't want to go share all their secrets with Tesla today, or Tesla wouldn't want to go share all their secrets with Ford, Google and Facebook. Same thing is happening in the rocket industry, no matter if you're talking about SpaceX, Blue Origin, Exos, and others. Also, you're going to see as the anticipated increase of activities at Spaceport America, we do have an additional budget request included in this year's ask, and so we look forward to asking for your support there. I think if you look, what surprises quite a few folks is to date we have over $9 million in revenues from outside customers. So those are dollars that are coming out. Another item that's not on this chart is as New Mexico state agencies, we average about 60% spend as a state of the budget dollars for the agencies, excuse me, a little over 60%, those dollars get spent in the state of New Mexico, so our tax dollars stay here. Spaceport America is actually is about 88% of those dollars for our agency get spent in the state. So we're very proud that we want to lead the trend of focusing any dollars that our agency earns to stay in New Mexico when we look for our suppliers and vendors. But let's get back to that story of quick look at the past, where we are today, and where we're moving forward. New Mexico has a rich history. It's taken a long time. It's easy to forget how long it does take to develop businesses and business lines, and how long New Mexico's been in the space race, all the way back to the 1930s and 50s. So I'm with you. I'm a former reformed businessman, as I like to call it, Mayor. And as much as we like our businesses to grow as quickly, sometimes it doesn't grow as quickly as you'd like. But I think through these next slides, we'll show you that we are gaining momentum, and the business of Spaceport America is moving in the right direction. So 2009, again, we talked about the time, dusty desert. We're all very familiar with it. It's part of the reason why a lot of us moved to the area or live in the area. We do have quite a bit of activities. This slide just wants to represent some of the various activities that have gone on, everything from competitions, open houses, and that top right corner is a photograph from the Spaceport America Cup, where we had over 1,500 students, all from out of the state and out of the country also, visit Spaceport America for a rocket competition. I'll be going into the Cup a little bit later today to give some more details on that. But those are all new opportunities. We're actually growing the business of Spaceport America and growing customers, and you'll see that reflected in several of the slides, where we're actually put strategies in place to actually grow the industry, to grow jobs to come here to Southern New Mexico and Sierra County. We're familiar with the SAFE team. I wanted to bring that up a little bit. Last time we talked about how often the good neighbor policy that our emergency responders do have, and we really think the local police department, the sheriff's department, we are very proud of the relationship that we've been building with them through the various events. We used to average about, when we first started and our SAFE team was on site, we only averaged one call a quarter in that good neighbor policy of off-site. We do want to remind all residents of Sierra County, especially out there in Engle and Cutter, please continue to call 911. They may dispatch us if we're not in a mission critical. We're a resource that we feel a good neighbor policy to respond. Today, we're averaging closer to 3 to 6 calls a month now on just whether it's a road accident, a structure fire, or whatnot. So our emergency teams, yes, they're funded to handle the missions there first, but we still believe in the good neighbor policy of responding to the neighboring communities. And frankly, through the leadership of this council and the county managers, we appreciate their support to get the local law enforcement to work together with us on that. Quickly, just kind of summing up in the past about Spaceport America, we talk about the world's first commercial built spaceport. Most of the other competing sites are old airports or legacy NASA resources that are out there, the land, weather. I mean, all these items of the intangibles are still very much important to the customers. Our customer pipeline recognizes each of these attributes as a compelling story of why they will be locating to Spaceport America, why they're negotiating with us today to move their space operations. So that's good. Again, talking about that 100 plus launches, yes, 60 of them were the student launches, 40 of them were of the private commercial space. Today, inked on the dotted line, you'll notice 4 customers, Virgin Galactic, Up Aerospace, who has multiple launches with us, Exos, who just announced yesterday some successful developments of their rockets, and they just announced that we're going to be their launch provider and their launch pad. You may have saw that in the news last night. And of course, Energetics, which is another startup company that will be relocating from, I believe, the Washington State area all the way to here, and they're taking some new innovative ideas of how to launch rockets and small payloads up into space. Again, continuing here, the sea level being almost a mile up higher continues to be a compelling story for our customers. That runway continues to be a compelling story. What is really nice is all these attributes, we're starting to see that sales pipeline, as I call it, of multiple customers coming to us, negotiating with us. There's more activity in that sales pipeline for rocket launch at this point in the year than there was even 18 months ago. The industry's starting to mature. We are still well positioned to take advantage of it. And again, we're going to keep pushing forward. We all wish those rocket launches were happening more often, but the increase is coming. We do see it happening. So if you look at the business of Spaceport, just as proof in the pudding, you'll see that trend line that the rocket launches are increasing. So it is coming up over time. This last year we'll be talking about, in a few slides, we'll be talking about some other mission launches from Boeing that occurred over the last year. As we look out into this year, that 100 new jobs that is coming to southern New Mexico, that is going to be driven mainly by Virgin. And some really good news that we just got in regards to the Virgin job front. Yesterday we just got informed that a division of Virgin, some of their employees who have always operated out of Mojave, okay, they've been home-based in Mojave, they were hired in Mojave. Yesterday they got the word that they are tasked and assigned to moving to New Mexico before the end of the month. So that trickling of new employees to the area continues to happen here in real time, and we're looking forward to getting them all moved here sooner rather than later as they have success. 2 weeks ago, Virgin also had a successful glide test, and so now the next step for their rocket is a power test, and we can talk a little bit more about that later. If you look at the commercial space industry, where it's at, still kind of taking a snapshot of kind of today and a little bit before, yes, the commercial space industry is about $330 billion a year industry. So that includes all the experimentations, all the scientists, all the materials development that goes on across the region. And the good thing is that $330 billion is not just so focused only on DoD government. That the private sector is starting to invest more and more in the commercial space industry, which is what you need for a healthy industry and healthy economy. More spaceports. I think this is a testament that we were thinking that we were being leaders in this industry. As if you were to throw this chart up a couple years ago, you wouldn't see as many spaceports. Other states are recognizing that this is a next industry. This is a next frontier of business development, of investing. So the good news here is Spaceport is still very much uniquely positioned to take advantage of it. And so I like to ask myself the question, was this, the spaceport industry, are we out of line here? Are we just missing the boat? Well, the way I see this is states like Florida, Georgia, Oklahoma, and all these other Colorado communities, they are also seeing the future of the spaceport industry. So we're well positioned, and we're beating our chest hard in the industry that we are the first commercial spaceport industry. And when we go to the different shows and we go to the different conferences, as we look for more customers, we are recognized as a leader here for the suborbital space flight, and it will continue. So that's really good news. Real quickly here, the airspace is what's most compelling about Spaceport America. So you hear ceilings, and I love the education here. So you'll hear ceilings, and people say, hey, we have restricted airspace above our spaceport. Our restricted airspace is very unique because it goes from ground to infinity. So that's very compelling. In Mojave, they have to fly through what's called a keyhole to access airspace to infinity. There's only 2 places in the continental U.S. that has ground to infinity restricted airspace that you can control. And if you look at that green map, you'll notice the yellow outline in the southwest. Of course, that's Spaceport and our partnership with White Sands. But you'll notice that dot on the eastern seaboard. It happens to be the Washington, D.C. area, White House area. So the only 2 areas that have ground to infinity. That chart on the right just shows our cooperation with White Sands and the amount of airspace as it relates to Spaceport America ground area. So our partnership with White Sands is extremely key to our success, helped us gain successes, and it will continue to grow. So the flight providers, if you look at the news even recently at what Blue Origin, SpaceX, these folks saying we want to fly not just once a month, not just once a quarter, we want to fly once a week, we want to fly twice a week. Well, this map here shows you what the commercial airspace looks like in New Mexico. So why would you still want to fly? You know, we hear about the launches in the news. Hey, they just launched out of Cape Canaveral. Why didn't you launch out of Spaceport America? Okay, that's orbital versus suborbital. And the business tempos of having to launch every week. Every time you launch, you can see right here how busy that eastern seaboard is. So we have to clear out Delta, Southwest, American Airlines. Well, if you look at this blank space right here, I don't know if you can see my cursor right there, that happens to be Spaceport America. Now, I don't think the commercial space or the commercial airline traffic, Delta, Southwest, and the rest of them, are going to be real pleased with having to get out of the airspace on a weekly basis for SpaceX and these other launch providers. Guess who doesn't have to manage that? Oops. But look at the airspace that does not have to manage that because of the restricted airspace. So as time goes on and those operational tempos do increase for flights, we are very well positioned inherently. Now, one day the airspace traffic will figure it out, but the reality is we still have an inherent advantage to keep throwing rockets into space faster than others. So again, you've heard me talk about suborbital versus orbital. Okay, we would love to launch orbital from Spaceport America. It's not New Mexico that's holding us back. It's actually the technology of rocket launches that's holding back for orbital. Think of it in the plainest sense that to go to orbit today, I need 2 gas tanks on a rocket to get enough energy to go all the way up. Well, as I'm going up, I need to drop one of those gas tanks off to go orbital. I don't think Texas would appreciate that we're dropping stuff off over them to go orbital. So we're today in the near term, we are focused on the suborbital business, and I have a video to share with you that can give you an example of what some of the suborbital work looks like. And as the microsatellites start going, the picosatellites. So when the technology catches up to go orbital, absolutely we're going to push for the orbital business. Today, and looking at the next couple of years, rocket technology is telling us that the focus is on suborbital. Now, we've talked about the tourism and the space transportation. What Virgin Galactic has discovered, and I think others are discovering, is it's not just about sending those 6 or 8 tourists up. There are payload opportunities that they need to use that same technology to go up into microgravity. So whether you're manufacturing computer chips, new medicines, new materials, you can get those several minutes of microgravity that you just can't get today. Today, microgravity gives us about a minute or 2. You know, we need to push that out to 3, 4, 5 minutes, and that's what our customers are doing in Spaceport America, is they are doing that. And I'll share a video with that to you in just a bit. But when you can get those 3, 4, 5 minutes of weightlessness, you can develop new materials, new manufacturing techniques, and even new agriculture techniques, and that's going to affect us here on Earth. That's where in the short term, where we see a lot of opportunity. We're seeing a lot of activity from universities coming out, and you'll see some evidence of that also, and even individual universities coming out, not just during the Cup, but coming out and launching their own rockets. A lot of the Up Aerospace customers and the other missions, they are carrying payloads to figure out how to do things better in that microgravity environment, and that's where we're capturing that business. So, sometimes I get asked the question, Chris, you're talking about this business is great. Where's it at? Where are we going to make it done? How do you know that's really going on? At the end of last quarter, Bank of America and Merrill Lynch called the commercial space industry as a final frontier of investing. So they saw the world as being, as we mentioned before, almost 340 billion annualized. And remember, I talked about it's not just private, the U.S. government funding all that. The U.S. government's only about 10% of that number, which is good. That means it's private and other folks into it. By the year 2045, that industry is going to be $22.7 trillion. Hey, Virgin Galactic, they've taken so long. There's no way they're going to go up in the air. It's just a big folly. You can get that question. Well, they just got reinvested by a sovereign nation of Saudi Arabia of over $1 billion commitment at the end of last quarter. And then also CNBC reported how there's billions coming from other venture backers. So the investment of people actually believing in this commercial space industry is starting to hit. And you're going to start seeing a groundswell of additional innovation, additional resources needed. And that's where we're positioned to start taking advantage of this as you see more rocket launches going up. So we've kind of talked about, a little bit of the past of the Spaceport America, kind of gave you a snapshot of the commercial space industry. I want to kind of go into specifics at Spaceport America now, talk about some of our customers and give examples of what we've accomplished over the last year. So this is so Boeing was working with White Sands to test the next manned space crew that was going out. And in 2016, we caught wind that due to weather patterns and that sort of thing, and other ground forces and weather forces, that Boeing was going to have to pull this program away from southern New Mexico. They weren't going to be able to operate out of White Sands for items that were beyond our control. When we started asking them about what their challenges were and what they needed to accomplish, we said, well, wait a minute. Just because you can't operate on White Sands doesn't mean you can't work with Spaceport America and White Sands and keep all your engineers here in southern New Mexico. Don't take them elsewhere. We want those hotel rooms, we want those dollars, we want those programs here. And lo and behold, we were able to keep them here. They've had several missions with us now. We just got approved, and Boeing's going to be pushing an advertising media campaign from Boeing touting the success that we've been able to create a teamwork and a synergy in southern New Mexico to keep space programs here. So the nice thing is Boeing's going to be leading that charge, and we'll see that media out here soon. So we're quite proud of that. This should be a video right here. So from Spaceport America. So that's the next manned space capsule. What this day's mission was going to take that capsule up to about 40,000 feet. The wind patterns were going to take it over to White Sands, and they're going to drop it, is what you're going to witness here. So just like that capsule would re-enter the atmosphere, that's what this is simulating from high altitude balloon. So as we're watching that, so an example of these engineering teams that come through, when they need to launch and prepare for missions at Spaceport America, they don't just come in for the day and leave. They actually have teams of engineers that have been coming in, and we've gotten data that quite a few of them have chosen to stay in Sierra County for the week that they have to stay in the area, and then just drive back and forth between the sites. That looks like a familiar view there, huh? So we're really appreciative of Boeing being able to share that. We're talking to Boeing about expanding some of the messaging and increasing activities, even here at the local visitor center, about ideas of how to increase some of the displays in there to educate the public on commercial space. And so we're very appreciative of the Boeing relationship that we're working hard to foster and continue to grow for ourselves here. So that's really good. Next, I want to show you a video. We've talked about this microgravity suborbital. This is a video that Up Aerospace has allowed us to share with you. I know it's from 2015, but it's a very good representation of that microgravity of what a lot of our customers get on the launches from Spaceport America. And this was a program testing some, there were a couple payloads on there, one agricultural. The main payload was actually testing for retrieval of items back from the International Space Station and how to get them back back to Earth in a cost-effective way. This is all actual video footage. This is not doctored. This is what you see is what you get. Real GoPro cameras is what was filming all of this here. So this will be, you can think of it as almost similar to what the Virgin Galactic Church will experience also when they go up there. That's one of the capsule payloads right there. That was testing it for retrieval from the International Space Station. And I have to say it's probably one of the luckiest shots and my favorite shot, showing the separation of the boosters. So those items are in microgravity and they do float back down to the Earth and re-enter here. So in combination with that airspace, restricted airspace, we know it's safe to drop items back through that restricted airspace, but also all the ground that we do have here in southern New Mexico that we can safely land. We have a large area to safely land all that. And again, that combination of having white sands next to our launch facilities allows for that as a customer valuable to the industry. This last year we hit a neat milestone. We were able to actually test become a test facility for our customer to test their motor rockets. So they're actually casting motor rockets out at the site and testing them on the site. So we were quite proud to have that. We've had 3 motor tests to date with our customer there. That was an example of we were able to repurpose. If you may remember, SpaceX came out there and made some improvements to the site and investments in the site. We have, through agreement with SpaceX, those are Spaceport America property, and so we were able to reconstitute some of those improvements on the ground to take advantage and create another service for our customers to test their rockets out there. Looking into the future of future customers, this is an example of a space plane that's being developed out there, and it is one of the segments that we're paying attention to. We're talking to several customers about being that launch point for what they're calling space planes out there, that point-to-point transportation, whether you're transporting people, materials. We know folks like UPS and FedEx are out there talking, wanting to get stuff around faster. The other trend that is happening, and this is public news, the other trend that's happening is how do we move more data? How do we get more smaller satellites, or do we put airplanes in the air that can be solar powered and keep them in the air? Well, what they're learning is with this restricted airspace, they need spaceports to operate out of. They can't just take off from the airplane from a regular airport for a variety of reasons. So we've got customers looking at us for a plethora of items, not just tourism, as we originally embarked on this. So diversified customer group out there. Next, I wanted to spend a few slides just looking at Virgin Galactic. This is a video of Virgin of one of their glide tests. So this is an example similar to what they just completed about 2 weeks ago. So next, we mentioned they had their successful glide flight 2 weeks ago, and they will have a powered flight here before the quarter is over. So each milestone step moves us closer to having that group actually move all their operations out here. Yes, the unfortunate accident in 2014 was pretty heavy, but they took that as a learning experience. They've made redesigns on the spaceship, and they're running in leaps and bounds, believe it or not, on coming closer to commercial traffic. What we're learning in regards to how the community is going to impact once Virgin moves here, we're getting data from Virgin Galactic that about 10 to 20% of their employees are going to choose to live in Sierra County, while a larger portion will choose to live in Las Cruces. Oddly enough, overwhelmingly, the pilots will probably live in Tier C, is what we're speculating, and just listening to them. So I think that's pretty I thought that was interesting, that overwhelmingly the pilot crews and the pilots were saying, no, 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 we want to be closer to Spaceport America. We're going to live in Tier C. So that's some exciting news. Kind of moving forward, just an example of that powered flight test. The other item that Spaceport America is tasked with, if you look at our charter, is on the education side. And we do have programs, and this is a program that we reach out to the classrooms. We worked with the TRC School District and other New Mexico school districts. We created a program with a national organization that gives virtual teaching to the students, this Field Trip Zoom. And Field Trip Zoom works with the Smithsonian, and all sorts of other museums and educative opportunities across the country to create content to put that product using iPads and FaceTime in the classrooms. It's much more cost effective to do that rather than to try to load a busload of kids up and go to the local museum, go to the zoo. So we can do this virtually. They contacted us wanting content from us and wanted our participation in that program, and we said, hey, we're willing to participate. There's just one item. Every school in New Mexico has to be able to access our content for free and access your content for free. And they said, you know what, we're willing to do that for you guys. And so now every school, every classroom in New Mexico can get a quick educative experience delivered to them from Spaceport America. Not only on that STEM outreach of reaching each classroom. Well, let me digress just a bit. We are proud to say that, and I believe it's every Tier C student, every sixth grader, and every sixth grader in the Las Cruces public school system has had personal instruction, personal class time, teaching time from Spaceport America over the last 2 years. And we will continue to grow that and improve that. But not just looking at the STEM outreach into the classroom. What are we doing to grow companies? These students are the next company owners, the next innovators. Well, that's where our Spaceport America Cup comes in. Okay, we've mentioned that a bit or two. So in the week of June, we will have at least 90 college teams. We think this year maybe we'll probably be closer to 120. And through the year, these college students work on how to build rockets. And these rockets aren't judged on how high you go. They're judged on accuracy. And so during this week, they're going to have, they come into New Mexico, and they have to present what they figured out. And then they have to go take it out to the field at Spaceport America and make it perform. Let's bring it down to the ground. Hey, I promise you my car is going to go 180 miles an hour fueled by ethanol. Okay? Now you have to go prove that your car can do that. Same thing in the rocket industry. So, and it's not just the launch of the rockets, but it's payloads. We had one student, this student was 12, 13 years old. He had a payload where he had a drone up in one of the rockets, and the drone ejected from the rocket, and he had to fly the drone back on his own. And so that was pretty exciting. There were medical experiments up there, a lot of sensor experiments by the different students. So when we talk about STEM, we also look at Spaceport America, but this is an event that literally is growing the industry and literally gives Sierra County the opportunity to attract new businesses. Because if we make this cup event for the students an enjoyable event, when they start thinking, hey, where do I want to base? I want to start my new company. Where do I want to base out of? Las Cruces and Sierra County. If we do a good job of rolling out the red carpet, make it easy for them to operate out of and make it an enjoyable experience, I don't want them going to Dallas. I don't want them going to Phoenix. I'm selfish. I want them here in southern New Mexico. So we're actually, that's an example of growing it. This is a quick video of that week, and I'm going to get out of your way here. It's one of my favorite videos. So this is that conference day, and of course, this was the largest event ever in Las Cruces for the convention center. The largest attended association event ever. Mayor Green, I believe your hospitality department here showed a notable uptick, very strong for hotel rooms here in TRC. And then I know in Las Cruces it affected that month of over 1,000 room nights, which has never happened in the month of June in Las Cruces. So that promise of being able to build other economy through the spaceport, this is just a one-week example of how it can happen, of how it is happening. Volume was working on that. So multiple countries coming out there. my volume's up as high as it can go. And then what we did here is, since you have this brain trust of all the students, what we learned is the companies want to come and interview all those students because they need future rocket engineers. So we had all these different space companies, Orbital ATK, Boeing, of course Virgin Galactic, Blue Origin, and they said, hey, we want to watch these students because it's like a real-time job interview. We said, that's great, we're going to work with sponsorship activities to allow you access. And so we had all those companies coming in and experiencing us for the first time, experiencing the community for the first time. And we actually are using this venue as a platform not just to reach into the students, but to reach into the other space companies to introduce Southern New Mexico to them. So in the month of June, it's going to be that third week of June, I invite all of you to please come on out there and experience some of this. We had several of our legislators out there, but this is a real opportunity because not all of our customers allow us to invite the public for rocket launches. This is one event where you can get a high frequency of rocket launches and actually listen to the students and kind of get a good flavor of what it takes to launch rockets and design rockets. Because during this competition, as exciting as the successes were, for me it was a lesson in passion when you see the disappointments. Just like we do, you see the success and the failures. It's an awesome learning experience out there. So United Launch Alliance has also launched a rocket at this event. So they were carrying payloads from different schools from around the country, and that's what this is here. Of note that I want to give a real big thank you is that community development. We talked about the law enforcement. We use ICS standards to communicate. So we're working with Paul Cooley quite a bit. So, because if you have these young 20-something-year-old students, we anticipated if you're at a hotel, and I'm just staying next door, why are they talking about chemicals blowing up in my hotel? So we work with local law enforcement closely to keep that going, and we go through Paul. So if you have any questions, he knows all of our schedules, who's coming through, and the different teams coming through. We work with Border Patrol, State Police, and everybody to keep them informed. So. University of Michigan was our first-year Cup Award winner, so it's going to be. We look forward to having them back next year. But this event actually used to be in Utah, so this was an example of an event that we were able to pluck out of another state and bring here, and so we're very proud of that. And then just to kind of give you a visualization of all the students that were available. So there's your 1,500 students with their different rockets ready to go. I see I'm up on 30 minutes here, Mayor. I'm going to speed up here a little bit if I need to slow down for you a little bit because I want to be sensitive to everybody's time.
Appreciate it.
Please let me know. Before we kind of mentioned the USC rocket launch, so this is an example of a private university coming in for a one-time rocket launch. We had about 50 plus students that came out and had to stay in the area. So again, it's that rocket launch provides the opportunity to come out here, but all the business that the support teams for the students staying in the area is what is good for the economy here also. Moving forward, New Mexico Tech launch, we did have a launch from them on November 9th. We look forward for them to come back. We hope they participate in the Cup next year. USC has scheduled to come back before the end of the first quarter. I think that date will be pushed out just a little bit. They're actually trying to hit the Carmen line. So they've got some pretty ambitious plans to head on up, but you'll see all those students come through the community once again. And then again, here we talked about other spaceports. So we've talked about where we're trying to harbor that business. Let's take a look at those other spaceports again, because it's very easy to fall into the question of, well, if everybody else is making a spaceport, are we just wasting our dollars? Competition is a good thing. And the reality is, if you look at this grid, they are using old legacy infrastructures. Yes, there's some advantages to that, but what customers are starting to tell us, actively negotiating, is they have a blank canvas here. We are negotiating with customers about ideas and business plans to locate here long term. The other item is that restricted airspace is huge, and you'll see all those items in green. that are very good for us. The low population density, unfortunately, accidents do happen. It is the space industry. Being located where we are, it makes that accident ratio be very focused on the rockets and not on people, as opposed to when you're having to work out of more populated areas like Florida, Mojave, or even Virginia. Our weather and those 300, almost 350 days of sunshine are a big deal. You can't launch rockets through cloud cover. You just can't. We don't get a lot of cloud cover. So I hope that I've been able to share with you, as we've matured here, and kind of shared with you some of the ideas of the different business enterprises that we're chasing. I hope I've been able to share some ideas of how the community can take, how the community can be affected and how it's moving forward. And I'm just really grateful to come here and share this time with you. And I'm open to any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Chris. Any questions from the commission? Yes, we have a question.
Always have a question.
Of course.
Morning, Mr. Lopez.
Good morning, Commissioner Beckler.
Just look into your crystal ball just briefly for the next year.
Yes, sir.
And if you could tell us what impacts you expect over the next year. We already know some of the things, but it's nice to just refresh our memories a little bit.
Right. Right. No, this next year, you're going to see of course, that week of June is going to grow by expansion. In the April timeframe, you're going to have another open house and also the relay race come through again. So just for one-off events, those are going to come through. In regards to activities from our customer base, we expect Boeing to continue their missions to come through. So you're going to continue to see customers coming through and wanting to stay anywhere from a week, 2 months, 3 months to come out. You're going to start seeing, I think, a more see more evidence of a corporate customer coming into the area. And when I say that, and I'm going to choose a completely arbitrary name here because we are bound by NDAs, but think of someone like a Microsoft deciding to come in. Microsoft has not approached us. Let me be clear about that. I'm choosing an arbitrary name. But someone, of the likes, we're used to hearing that name in the news. If Microsoft came here and they wanted to develop a new technology that required airspace, they'll send a team out for 2 or 3 months into the area. So I think it's important that we need to continue to foster and harbor these companies. And remember, the visitors that come into the area, they may look nondescript, but they're in a fierce competitive environment. So it may be the Microsoft, it may be the Boeing, it may be a Lockheed Martin. And I think we just need to expect to just kind of almost be on our P's and Q's a little bit better. We're used to rolling out the red carpet and welcoming those folks that come to the lake and spend dollars in the community. I think to show that these folks that come in from other communities, show them this is a good place to do business, they will make judgments on us. So I think you'll see more visitors coming in and you won't even realize where they're from. In regards to Virgin Galactic and their continued experience, I do expect 100+ jobs to be here before the end of the year. It is milestone based. It's not set in stone, but I am seeing evidence that more and more Virgin Galactic employees are moving here. They have outgrown their offices in Las Cruces, even though they just finished expanding them. They're needing to double the size of their offices in Cruces. I expect that to have more resident effects here. For us, as another data point, our security team is almost a dozen team members strong. That entire security team lives here. I think we're going to have to increase our resources and people count as we gain more revenues for more support staff at Spaceport America to support our activities there. So I just expect more. I think it won't move as fast as we all want to, and I don't think growing a business ever does. But I think there's definite proof and there's definite tangibles that show that we're moving in the right direction and we did make a correct investment. So I hope that's giving you an idea of what to expect. I hope I answered your question directly.
I think so. And just a follow-up, you touched on this just a little bit, but as a community, how can we better react to or with Spaceport America? How can we better support you?
That's a really good question. We've been, the support that we've gotten from the city and the county has been fantastic. I think there's been open dialogue, new ideas, and I think if I could speak to every member of a community, TRC has a neat opportunity. I'm a native New Mexican. I was born and raised out of NMSU, and I love that personal touch. And I know a lot of our customers are coming from Manhattan or LA or even overseas. And sometimes we'll discredit ourselves saying, oh, well, we can't provide that white glove limousine treatment that someone may want. I don't think that's what our customers are looking for. I think our customers are looking for an ease of business. And so as a small community, we can also rally as a small community to give a good, cohesive message. Say, we are open for business. We can be here. You know, we don't need to strive to be the white glove chandelier folks, but we can strive to be the best customer service, the best, show them an adventure that they can't get anywhere else. Show them a culture they can't get anywhere else. Because TRC has that, New Mexico has that. But also with that in mind, I think we also have to remember that as powerful as that ability to be cohesive and deliver that message, remember, nothing's always going to go perfect. So a single voice can also just fracture that message and have negative impacts. Unfortunately, we have had customers ask us about sometimes there's a negative press comment or a negative comment on social media. We do get asked about that, and our customers do ask, is it really easy to do business in TRC? I have been asked the question, will we get harassed? Oh, you're going to be fine. Let's go in there. So there's a neat responsibility, but I think the steps that cohesively that the city's going through, they've reached out to us on the one-off events like the open house and the cup, and they've asked us questions, hey, how can we help with Virgin? And we know some of the Virgin tour members are coming through saying, hey, we're working with different tour groups and the marketing groups. It was about 4 weeks ago, we had the entire, all the different parks departments and everybody together with Secretary Latham. I think keeping that global view of saying, okay, let's remember there's a global view here. How do we keep moving forward? And don't get discouraged that we're not hitting the grand slam yet, because guess what? Every race has at least the first step. I like to run marathons personally. I know I don't look at other people like her. But that first mile of every training run for myself is horrible. It's hard work. It's frustrating. I've got another 25 of these miles to run, but I'll tell you, we're not at the first mile of Spaceport. We're much further down the road. But I'm telling you, the evidence is there that we're running the correct race. We're on the correct path. We just need to keep moving forward and just stay positive. It's not going to be perfect. There will be bumps in the road, just like anything in life. But again, the leadership that this council has shown, that the county managers have shown, the businesses stepped up. We got in during the Cup. We've got positive reports out of a couple hotels from the students, from the hotels, remembering that we're a customer service-driven community. Even out of McDonald's, kids got free apple pies because I guess there was hiccups in the ordering. And they went bonkers. What they remembered about TRC was how friendly. There's at least 20 students that are coming back, talking to all their friends, saying they need a lunch. They remember the hospitality of McDonald's. And so I think, to directly answer your question, we're all in the customer service business.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. And also, I understand that sometimes people like to come into communities unannounced and just check it out and look
Absolutely.
around. But also, some people would like to have a little bit more one-on-one experience and know, as I think you know, when we brought Cabinet Secretary Latham out to Spaceport, that this commission is prepared to do what it takes to put our best foot forward and spend time showing people around our community our assets and the county as well.
Yes, sir.
So thank you very much. I appreciate it. And,
Thank you so
I know
much.
you have another place to go to, so
Yes,
thank
sir.
you for your time.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate it. All right, our next presenter is from Copper Flat Mines. He's the office manager, and it's Omar El-Amawi. I hope I pronounced your name correctly, sir.
Yes, you did, thank you.
Good.
Good morning, everyone.
Oh, Omar, are you going to need, Renee? She will
I'll
need
look it up, yeah.
Oh, oh, Renee has it.
Oh. Well, good morning, everyone. Mayor Green, Commissioners, my name is Omar El-Amawi. As Mayor Green said, I represent New Mexico Copper Corporation, i.e. the Copper Flat Mine. I'm here to provide a brief update, a status update on where we're at with the project, and hopefully address any questions after the presentation. For the sake of time, I'll try to run through this fairly quickly and save some time for some Q&A at the end. If you're not familiar with the Copper Flat project, we are trying to restart the Copper Flat mine, which is located in Hillsborough, New Mexico. We've been at this since 2010, and the project was purchased also back in 2010 by the MAC Resources Group, and it is traded on the Toronto Stock Exchange. Sorry. This is a copper mine. We will also be mining gold, silver, and molybdenum. The projected mine life as it stands right now through our feasibility study is around 12 years, with a high likelihood that it will be expanded as we further expand the deposit once mining does begin. The first slide over here, I took the liberty of kind of gathering some information about other private sector as well as government companies and investments in New Mexico as a whole. If you take a close look, right after Facebook's $1 billion investment in Los Lunas, then comes the Copper Flat project in terms of how much money will actually be invested in New Mexico, and that equates to right now, and does have a potential to change, $415 million, which it will take to actually bring this project live and online. We've already spent $55 million of that. In the next slide, I'll take some time to show you how much was actually spent here locally. So far, like I said, $55 million is spent in New Mexico, or generally on the project. $30 million or $39 million has actually been spent in New Mexico. Approximately 3.5 in Sierra County alone, and Albuquerque around close to 13, and the rest of the state close to $22 million. It's been our goal from the beginning as a company, and this is something that we've consistently mentioned and tried to remain consistent with, is to spend as much money as possible here locally to accomplish the goal of actually bringing this project into production. And that translates into jobs as well as tax revenues for residents here locally and for the state to actually grow economically. This was money that was spent on consultants and contractors as well as products, raw materials that we did actually purchase in New Mexico. This is a pretty good indicator of how much we're going to be providing in terms of employment to not only New Mexico, but specifically to Sierra County. And this is during the operation phase. We are going to have about 270 full-time employees at the mine site. And there's going to be a range there between 270 to 300, depending on the years. However, that will be the minimum amount employed during that time. The average or annual salary is going to be between $35,000 to $60,000 plus benefits. The last time I took a look at the average household income in Sierra County, I believe it was around $28,000. If I'm mistaken, please do correct me. But I honestly believe this is going to be a tremendous boost to the Sierra County economy, and I believe it could be a tremendous incentive for a lot of the young folks to actually stay in Sierra County, because I remember when I first started with the company in 2010, the population of Sierra County was around 16,000. Now it's close to 11 or 12, I believe. And I think a huge factor is that there's not very many employment opportunities. There's not very many opportunities for young people to get jobs and actually start a family and stay here. So, they have to resort to going to the oil fields and going to Texas and other places because they really realistically can't support a family here with the opportunities that are available. So hopefully we can help with that. And this is just a small list of the employment opportunities that will be available and positions. And if you are interested, you can talk to me after, and I can give you a little bit more detailed information. This next slide is a little bit more focused on the tax contributions. There's over the 12 years around $175 million that the company and the project will generate in tax revenue. That's both federal, and of that, $53 million is going to go to the state of New Mexico. And if you look a little bit closer, I don't know if you can see it, I think the color is just a little bit dim. There's $7 million in gross receipts tax, as well as 6.6 in property tax that will be a direct benefit to Sierra County. Like I mentioned before, it's going to take quite a bit of money to construct this project. It's going to take $360 million to get it off the ground and actually online. $45 million will go directly to Sierra County spending. That's what we're estimating given our feasibility study as it stands right now. 49 million of that, or 49 million more, will be spent in the state of New Mexico. The average annual operating expense to actually run the mine is going to be $115 million, and there will be $24 to $30 million in annual labor income, and that's going to be obviously mostly spent among folks that do live in Sierra County. You know, we project that the population will grow as we hire more folks and families start moving in here, and that's going to be spent on lodging, food, entertainment, you name it. Now, one of the major focuses that we've taken into account when it comes to our environmental plans, because we know that's always been a major concern for citizens that live here, and that's something that we have our consultants and contractors really focus on. Our plans have been built with environmental consciousness in mind. I think I've mentioned this before, but I think it's something to always keep in mind, is that 65 to 75% of the water that will be used at Copper Flat will be recycled water. Everything that we do bring into the process, we will recycle as much as possible and as much as we can from it. Also, the Copper Flat site is designed as a zero discharge facility, and that pretty much means that none of the water that we bring into the process is going to be released into the environment, i.e. into the ground, except through evaporation. And we're taking extreme measure to contain the amount of evaporation that does happen on site. So we're going to be containing catchment ponds and covering them to reduce any sort of evaporation. And we are also going to be installing a $20 million liner underneath our tailings impoundment to prevent any sort of water seepage into the groundwater for contamination. Another point I'd like to make is that we are not going to be using any lethal or toxic materials and solutions to actually process our ore. Our ore ends as a concentrate slurry, and from there it actually goes on to the rail in Rincon, and then from there it'll be probably end up in the Port of Lyons in Mexico, and then it'll end up in a smelter somewhere else around the world. And that's only because the smelters in the United States are all in full capacity and are not going to be able to intake any from us. Another two things we like to focus on is definitely the air quality and dust control. We know that that's a major concern for folks who do live in that area, and we do take that very seriously. We are going to be instituting controlled trucks that will be on a scheduled basis spraying water on the ground to reduce the amount of dust in the air and to prevent it from traveling to neighboring cities and towns, mainly Hillsborough, since that's about 3.5 to 4 miles away from the site. We are also going to be fencing off areas where wildlife can potentially enter, and we will be adding certain escape routes for them to actually be able to get away from certain areas. Now, I know this is the main topic that many of you are probably focused on today, and that's probably because this is the latest piece of information that we did receive a verdict from the judge on our water rights case. As many of you do know, that we were in a water rights legal case with the state of New Mexico, the Office of the State Engineer specifically, and we had purchased, along with the property when we first started in 2010, around 7,500 acre feet a year to be able to operate the mine. We need around 6,100 acre feet to actually process the ore that we will be producing. Recently, on December 28th, the judge did rule against us and only provided around close to 900 acre feet for us approved to actually use. Obviously, that's not enough for us to continue, but what I do want to say here today is that this is not the end of the road for us. We've spent $55 million so far on the project, and there are a lot of other options for us in terms of acquiring the needed water rights to put this into production. Among those strategies and options is to either lease new water rights or purchase new water rights, and actually even appeal the judge's decision, which we are going to be doing. We're also submitting a new application with the Office of the State Engineer. We're pretty optimistic about that as well. Now, this was a mine back in 1982, so we're actually trying to restart this mine. There already is a footprint there, and back then there was not the new mining law that did require folks to reclaim the area to the standards that are required now. And with our purchase of the property in 2010, we are responsible for reclaiming that land. And I don't know if many of you know, but before you are able to actually start and begin construction, you are required to have a financial assurance in place so that if you do go under as a company and a project, that there is money left behind and that taxpayers aren't left to foot the bill in actually reclaiming that land. So our reclamation plan, as it stands right now, has been submitted to all state agencies as well as the federal agency, the BLM. And in that plan, we're going to be instituting a lot of reclamation strategies that will bring the site as much as possible back to the way it was before. And like I mentioned, there is a footprint there now that was not reclaimed due to the mining law not being in place back in the 80s, but it is there now, and we plan to fully meet that and in some areas actually exceed it. Now, the permitting status, as it stands right now, the BLM is actually getting ready to announce a final EIS, hopefully by the end of this month. They feel that we have addressed all or most of the concerns that were submitted by third-party and community members, as well as state agencies and other agencies. And that will probably move us into a schedule that puts the record of decision hopefully mid this year to late third quarter. The permitting side of this project is actually going exceptionally well for us right now. Just last week, in fact, we met with the NMED to review our discharge permit, and they deemed it technically and administratively complete. And they will be publishing a draft permit of it, and public hearing and comment period will be taking place most likely in March or April of this year. The mine permit through the MMD is also under technical review, and we're also hoping to have that completed, and it will most likely be approved at late this year or early next. Now, we've been involved with the community since 2010. I believe if you're new to the community, I'm sure you probably know by now that we're very much involved, and I feel we've become a part of the fabric of the community. I mean, we try to do our part to attend local events, to participate in the TRC Fiestas, the Sierra County Fair. We also instituted a community scholarship 4 years prior, and we've continued that year after year, and we hope to be able to move that forward in the future as well. We also have site tours that folks are more than welcome to call us up, email us, and ask for a site tour. We are always available for that, so if you're interested in one, please do get in touch with me after this. Now, we did receive resolutions of support from the Sierra County Commission, as well as the Elephant Butte City Council and the Village of Williamsburg, also as well as the TRC City Council and Commission back in 2012. We did renew them in 2015, however, the city of TRC took a more neutral stance, so I'm here today asking for a reconsideration of that and reinstating the positive resolution of support for the project. And with that, I will end and take any questions.
Thank you. Any questions from the commission? I just have one, Omar.
Yes, sir.
You talk about the GRT. I'm assuming that's the GRT that's going to be created by the paychecks that are circulating in the communities, not because what you're doing, you're not making finished products, so there's no sales tax collected on what the mine produces and ships.
Correct.
Is that a fair
Correct,
statement?
yes.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure that was right. Any other questions? Thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Thank
you
you.
for your time.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Thank you. Josh, you okay? Moving on, thank you. Next item is comments from the public. Please step forward if you want information to become part of the official documentation of this meeting. Please put it in the black box, just your name and where you reside. Diane.
I'm Diane Lombardo, and I reside in Truth or Consequences. I have put in the box a copy of New Mexico guidelines for sheltering. Ms. Canton, can you please make sure that the police department gets a copy? And the pertinent information starts on page 32. Basically, I'd like to tell you about our resources for information that is available to the police department, which they have not taken advantage of. We have a loosely called a board. We have well over 100 years of experience with sheltering, rescues, and everything else. We also even have a shelter vet retired on this board. We have a cat sister group up in Hillsborough called SCARS, Sierra County Animal Rescue Society, and their sole reason for being is to help with the new shelter with volunteers, money, and everything else. I personally emailed Acting Chief Apodaca and offered assistance, and he says it's on the agenda. And then they went ahead and decided to make plans without even asking anybody who really knows. And owning a dog does not qualify you to make rules for a shelter. I have been asked by a lot of people, they're afraid of the city shelter to being like it used to be. Well, they can't kill animals. They can't use them for target practice anymore. They can't gas them anymore. That's against the law. And we have built a state-of-the-art shelter. We had high hopes for this shelter. I mean, not many little communities have really nice shelters like we do. You know, that being said, it's been put in the hands of people who know absolutely nothing about sheltering and are not asking the people who do know about sheltering. They have decided not to let volunteers interact with animals. We would probably be the only place in the state that allows this, that doesn't allow this. There are very good reasons for it, and we have had offers of help for training from an organization that had 7 years of no animal attacks. We have had, CAT has done over 800 spay and neuters, nobody's been bitten. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Susan Curry, and I'm here in support of volunteers at the shelter being able to interact with the dogs, walk them. Last night I went online for something else, and the shelter volunteer thing came up, and it says that shelter volunteers in most of New Mexico and most of the states are allowed to feed the dogs, walk the dogs, socialize the dogs, clean the cages, which we all know nobody really wants to do. The shelter manager is only one person, and with all those dogs, I don't know how she can do it. If you're afraid of dogs, then you don't do it, you know, but all of us want to help. We want to walk the dogs. We want to play with the dogs. That's the whole object of being a shelter volunteer, is being able to socialize with the dogs. We have a great water park. We have a great dog park. How rude. How rude.
That was not 3 minutes, we apologize.
That's okay. I'm almost finished anyway. It's, you know, it's a problem. I don't know Erica or Chief Apodaca, Mike Apodaca. I don't know them. I've never had any interaction with them, which is probably good. But I think that, you know, walking shelter dogs, Eliana, she has a Tuesday morning where people come and play with the dogs, and you have to socialize them. I have 4 of my own, so I understand that they have to be, you know, they have to be used to people. If they're not, then they will bite you, and they will, you know, cower. So I'm really here in support of the shelter having volunteers that can interact with everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Carol?
Carolyn Cossidis, TRC. People, good work. This is big. We, the people, the voters, have wisely chosen against the city government's police station project. Ron Finn, accused of costing the city $8,000 for this special election, should be thanked for bringing this issue to referendum and giving the voters their right to choose against the city government. Ron Finn has saved taxpayers untold tax dollars, paying off a 25-year-old loan and the ever-ongoing expenses of maintenance and utilities. How's that compared to the $8,000? The next step will be a plan to reallocate those tax dollars designated public safety for the public safety of beginning work on the water system, sewerage, and streets, proportionate to police needs, and being able to start making a better TRC for everyone. You must register to vote by February 6th to vote in the March 3rd municipal election, where seats number 1 and 3 are coming up for re-election. Let's put some new energy and new ideas in seats 1 and 3 with a sense of priorities, wise use of our tax dollars, and a vision of a better TRC. Please learn more about the candidates and vote on March 3rd. Take a chance on change and search your hearts for what that means. Yes, together we will make a better TRC, but we need your vote. Thank you, and God bless us all.
Thank you.
Good morning, everybody, Chief, Commissioner, Mayor, public. My name is Michael Simpson. I believe in the future of this city. I believe in the future of the spaceport. I was in Florida, in Orlando, Titusville, watching the space my whole life. I believe that this is the way of the future for so many things. Private industry, Lena, I think I'm gonna. Private industry, so many things. You know, the thing as a member of the public that I see is that the voice, I'm in the public. I'm a member of the public. What brought me here was fairness. Because it appeared to me from the outside that fairness of the public and their wishes was not being met by the government. That's problematic to democracy. My only interest is application of process and equal application of law in democracy. That's it. You know, and when that takes place, what happens is growth. If we are resistant to change, we are resistant to the fluidity of democracy. By its fact, it is fluid. It is always changing. And the moment we are resistant to it, we are hindering ourselves and hindering the growth of everybody that's around us. You know, the things that are taking place, Jeff Bezos is reinvesting to build Amazon. That's what he has done. He made no profits for the first 5 years. He reinvested to his business. Virgin Galactic, Richard Branson is doing the same thing. Elon Musk is doing exactly the same thing. This community needs to reinvest, like Mr. Lopez says, we have a voice that's heard. It's not being heard by the city government in social media. I utilize social media to the maximum. I talk to every one of my representatives, and I insist on what the will of the people is. And when that begins to take place, we see magnification, we see growth, we see unity, we see community, and we see democracy. It is what it is. You know, I have spent my whole life fighting because I was a state kid. I was thrown away because I have defective parents. And I have fought my whole life to be a part of a growing and active community, no matter which community I live in. That's my interest. You know, that's my interest for everybody that's here and for this town. We have Warm Springs, we have copper, we have silver, we have gold, we have space. We have hospitality, we have good attitude, we have everything that we need for growth, and we're not utilizing it to its maximum. That hurts everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
My name is Kathy Rosenquist, and I live in Truth or Consequences. I have never, ever heard of an animal shelter not having volunteers. The shelter needs volunteers because they cannot financially really take care of the animals properly without those volunteers. It also scares me that without the volunteers, there won't be public access to these animals. And I hate to think what could happen to the animals because they don't have enough help. Also, many of the shelters, when volunteers come in, there's no liability because the volunteers sign a waiver that the shelter will not be responsible if there is an accident with an animal, which really does not happen very often. I really hope that the Truth or Consequences Council here will say, yes, we need volunteers in these shelters here. We really, really do. I thank you for your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, council members, the police department, the attorney, and the public. This is a letter I wrote.
Ma'am, can you just state your name for the record,
My name
please?
is Mickey Nichols, and I live in Truth or Consequences, New Mexico.
Thank you.
And I wrote this to the police department in letter format. Dear Acting Chief Apodaca, Please be advised that I telephoned your office on Thursday, 1/18/18, and left a message requesting a return call, weighing an experience I had with one of your officers, Officer Sokolov, and was concerned with how he handled a pilfering matter which I experienced. Be advised that I received no return call. I came into the police station and spoke with your Lieutenant Baker, who was very defensive and I believe disrespectful when I tried to discuss my complaint, Ray Officer Sokolov. She became defensive and told me that I was attacking one of her officers. That was not my intent. I merely wanted her to take the information and to arrive at resolution. Lieutenant Baker advised me that she would discuss the matter with Officer Sokolov, and she indicated that she would call me on the very next day. Lieutenant Baker failed to honor her commitment to call me. This is one of the major reasons that the police department has an unacceptable reputation in the state of New Mexico. I suggested to Lieutenant Baker that we have a meeting with myself, Lieutenant Baker, and the officer in question, namely Officer Sokolov, since in my experience, a meeting with all parties concerned could resolve the issue and arrive at resolution. Lieutenant Baker declined. Another reason why things don't work relative to the police department in the state of New Mexico. By copy of this letter, I ask your kind assistance in resolving this issue and request an appointment enabling us to discuss the matter. Thank you for your kind consideration in this matter. What the police department needs are communication skills and good business acumen. They don't need to become defensive, because that puts a red light on in my head saying, what is wrong? You know, I mean, I just wanted her to take the information. And they need not only good communication skills, but they need good people skills so that you can act with the public in an amicable manner. Thank you very much.
Ma'am, if you'd like to, if you want to take the letter and put it in a black box so our clerk can have a word for word.
Well, the only thing is, Mayor, there needs to be a copy given to Chief Apodaca.
Okay, once you make the copy, if you want to stop by the clerk's office downtown and give him the letter.
Okay, or I can
That would
just
work.
go make a copy at the senior center and I'll bring it back.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Mr. Fenn.
Good morning, Commissioners. Ron Fenn, Truth or Consequences. Yesterday, we saw for the first time in a long, long while, as long as I've been here, the people actually had a voice. We spoke, and what the message was we do not want to be ignored. When you are making decisions at your commission chair here, you must take into consideration what the people that you theoretically represent have to say. If you act without their say, we will act as we are able. The vote, I believe, would have been much higher against this ordinance if you had not spent so much time trying to make it a Ron Fenn issue. It was not a Ron Fenn issue. It was an issue of financial importance to this community, and you took your action unanimously without the support of the people. The support needs to come before the vote, before your ordinances are passed, not afterwards, and hoping that the people will not do a referendum against your ordinance. It can be done on any decision that you make. So it behooves you to find out what the people want. And in order to do that, you have to give them full disclosure, not little bits and pieces of whatever the issue is, full disclosure, full truth, and then let the people decide what they want to do for their community. On that regard, another issue that came up, and unfortunately Mr. Lopez has left, but the City of Truth and Consequences is getting $3,600 this year from Spaceport America. $3,600. Senator Cervantes of Las Cruces is getting $46,000 for a smaller rent, and El Paso Electric is getting $4,800 for their electricity for the office. We're getting $3,600 for one of the finest buildings in this city. If you keep devaluing city assets and giving them away, there will be nothing left for the people here to look forward to. Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. This is Alvon Trujillo, 506 West 3rd Street. I had a couple of things to talk about today. The first is the point under new business. It's the extension of the golf course contract. And I tried to send everyone an email, but I think, Rolf, I didn't get it to you on this. I don't think you should be renewing the contract with the city, with the manager for the golf course. Look at the golf course today. Look at the way it was when he took over. It's vastly disimproved, if there's such a word. It's not as good as it was then. You know, I used to see the former pro watering that grass by himself after golf hours. I mean, he lived at that little place, and he would go and be watering the greens. I don't see that for the past 2 years, well, since Mr. Taylor's taken over. And that's just pride. Look at the post along Marie Street. There's 3 that have been uprooted, and they're just lying on the ground. I don't know if it's the golf course manager's position of the cities, but there's no pride in there. There are weeds as you go down there. Just do something differently. I wanted to bring up the article, June 22nd, 2011, by Kathleen Sloan, and she asked, where is the money? And that was the money with the GRT tax that was specifically for public safety. They estimated $235,000 a year would be generated by this new GRT tax, which was put into effect in 2012. Well, that's a good question. Where is the money? You know, the vote that we just had yesterday, that's one thing. I mean, we don't want to spend money on a police building that was not needed. I went down there, the chief, Palaco, graciously let me view it. I took pictures. It's a really nice building. Something our city can be proud of. Why are we not using that money generated for salary increases for city police? Why are we, you know, I was arrested in 2014 for DWI, and the only reason I was arrested because police officers were not certified to do the breath test. Only one of the 8 officers at that time, according to Chief Mullins at the time, she told me this, was certified with the breath analyzer test. I would have been released right then and there. Said I had to wait 3 months. I'm $350 out of my pocket because you all didn't do your job in making sure that that money was utilized by that department to get certified. Under Chief Alvarez, I understand, I talked to him about this, all of the officers are now certified to do the breath analyzer test in the field. We need to have that type of certification. We need to give them more money to retain them. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Ashbaugh?
Good morning, Commissioners. Randy Ashbaugh, 1023 Poplar Street, Truth and Consequences, New Mexico. I've been around this country. I've traveled quite a bit looking at things. Not much time away from TRC. Really never been away from this town more than 10 days in my whole life. Except, well, I take that back. I took a job in Arizona for a few months. This town has more potential than any other small town I have ever seen. We have lakes. We have rivers. We have mountains. We have cattle. We have farming. We have hot mineral water. We now have the spaceport. We have possibly mining. I mean, we have it all. And we have an interstate. We have a railroad. And we have lost population. in this town the last 10 years. The census comes out in 2020, and if we lose more population, we will not get any larger companies in this town. I had a deal canceled last year. I told them that demographics look really bad, which they do. Our per capita income per household is about $22,000. If you drive into Doña Ana, it's $44,000. But the bottom line is, we've got to get back to blocking and tackling and basic things for our city, like cleaning the streets, keeping up our alleys, fixing our potholes. You can just drive right out the driveway here, hit a pothole, just turn right. I mean, that is incompetence on somebody's part. That pothole's been out there for months, not to mention hundreds of others around the town. That vote yesterday expressed one thing to me. There's a lot of mad people, a lot of mad people. That's a pretty good turnout for just a one-issue item. The police department, Mayor, you said as a commissioner that was restricted money for the police department in June or May of 2011. Mr. Fuentes, you said that that money was allocated for salaries, benefits, equipment, new police cars, and new hires. It's been used for basically everything but that. A lot of that money's gone in the general fund. That money ought to be put in a restricted account and used properly for these police officers, for new police officers, better wages, better equipment, better training. It's just, we are going in the absolute wrong direction. And I hear rumors on that golf course that thinking about doing something different with the golf course. You're going to see a lot of really mad people. The city spends hundreds of hours downtown every week doodling with something downtown or here, there, and yonder. They could come up and help at least clean the ditch in the golf course. I've also asked for all the expenses on the sidewalks on Broadway, South Broadway, which are going to probably be $500,000, and when the city's going to get $265, where's the other money coming from to pay for those sidewalks? It's a gift to the state of New Mexico and the federal government.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hans? Townsend?
Good morning, City Commissioners, City Manager, General Public, Hans Townsend, Chamber of Commerce, and Desert View Inn. I hope you're listening to a lot of these comments, because you don't really do things the way that they should be done. You have your advisory committees that you don't listen to a lot of the time. That's why I'm not on the lodging board anymore, and that's why 4 of us left at the same time. When we try to say we need to do this, it doesn't get listened to, it gets overridden. And unfortunately, I think this city is becoming not a democracy anymore, but it's ruled by our city manager. And instead of you guys suggesting things for the city manager to get done, the city manager tells you what he thinks you should be doing, and that's the picture that we get more and more. And I think you got the reaction yesterday from people who are frustrated that we don't go where we're supposed to be going. You don't improve the city for the people that come in and see it. You're doing projects that you think are great projects, and I told you this before. For me, the swimming pool was the beginning of the end. When you spent $500,000 on a blow-up roof, there was no logic and common sense in a lot of the things. And people see that, and you don't react until it gets to the point where everybody's getting angry, and that's sad. Listen to the people that you have on committees. Listen to your utility department. Listen to those people. They're there for a reason. They're there because they want to help. They're not getting paid. They do it because they want to do it, because they want to see improvements. And it's sad that you don't listen. On a better note, we've printed the new visitors guide, 35,000. They are right now out in Denver, being distributed all through Denver. They want to go to Albuquerque, they're going to go to El Paso, and they go all through New Mexico. 35,000 of them. We hope they'll last this year, but last year we printed 35,000 too. We printed 25,000, it lasted 6 months, and then we were going out. if you have a look at this, and I know some of you have, I think this does a job of bringing people. I know the reaction we get from people that see it, that speak to us about it, and so we hope it's going to do a lot of good. We're asking the hotels to let us know if they see a larger influx of people from northern Colorado. So we're trying to get a little bit of feedback on what results we get out of this. But I'd like you to take a good look at it. And one of the things that we put in there, which we thought was important, was in the community. You'll find that we've got the senior center in there now, we've got the hospital, we've got the clinics, we've got medical, we've got the schools. Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Anyone else like to address the commission? Ms. Perone?
Sophia Perone, 316 North Joffrey. And I'm so happy to be here today, the day after a wonderful election that my friend and colleague Ron Fenn did so much work to make successful, running around town, over 70 years old, doing things, making the greatest fake money that's ever been made in the whole world, $3 million bill. Thought it was wonderful. And Ron and I we met 10 years ago, 2008. This will be the big year where 300 people sat down in the Civic Center in August of 2008 and told Mr. Green and a whole bunch of other bureaucrats that were sitting in the front, shoving the Hot Springs Motorplex down our throats, that we didn't want it. Don't zone it into the city. Don't take a fake town 12 miles away and put it into our city. And they said, we were overwhelmingly against it, and they said, screw you, we're doing it anyway. And it's cost us over $250,000 to get out of that stupid deal. Any shiza with any shyster that comes into town is wonderful here in Tier C. Lay the red carpet out. Now, we're going to zoning, and there are many things in this agenda that are zoning items. I know we had several problems with trailer parks, and I see that we have a new trailer park law that nobody offered any input into, including people who live in trailer parks. And here we have on G2 a discussion action of a zoning variance to allow a trailer to be dropped into 623 Garst Street. And that's under ordinances, resolution, and zoning. Then we have under H2, new business, discussion action used for a mobile home on the airport property. These things are all supposed to be done by the Planning and Zoning Commission. Get our zoning, get all of our boards and commissions back on track, get new people into this commission, get some people who have smarts. We have a lot of smart, talented people in this town with a lot of common sense who can get things done. And also, please condemn and empty this urine-soaked residence that's being occupied by 4 dogs and God knows how many people next door to me. Please, Chief Apodaca and Mr. Chavez, who do nothing.
Thank you. Anyone else like to address the commission? Yes, sir.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Stanley Rickert. I live here in Tier C, and I'd like to address my concerns with the adjacent. Is this working? Okay, sorry. I'd like to address my concerns again with the adjacent property next to me that is being, I think, changed to a home occupancy permit. I'm not sure. We discussed this. I discussed it with Juan anyway. And I was curious as to what is being done because the operations over there seem to be continuing in a fashion that, has not changed whatsoever as far as allowing vehicles to come in there, be stored or parked, and changing the views or the conditions of the property. Now, there was a code enforcement officer down there, Mr. Chavez, that came down and looked things over. I don't know what he found or what he made comments about, but he did write a citation for a parked RV on the side of the road down near the stop sign, which was registered and of course has insurance, and he gave a citation for that vehicle, but I didn't know what to think about that. But it needs something more than just, allowing continue to fester as far as what is taking place. The owner has brought in more vehicles, has taken other vehicles out. He's brought in commercial vehicles, oversized, overweight, into the infrastructure of the streets that is not allowable as far as your codes. And I was just wondering what can be done as far as what do I need to do? Do I have to make an appointment to have somebody vote on this or get some kind of action? I'm at wit's end. It's not fair for me to have to, walk out there and have to listen to all the noise, listen to all the, vehicles running around, and just not being a very laid-back atmosphere like I had envisioned in my, venture here is coming to live in TRC. So I'm just wondering what I can do. And that's all I have to say for a moment.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Anyone else like to address the commission? Seeing none, we will move on. The next item is response to public comments. Are there any response from the commissioners? Anything you have heard?
Go ahead.
Commissioner Ashland?
Yeah, I have a couple of responses. And first of all, I want to just thank the people in the audience for coming up and making your comments. I know sometimes it's painful up here to hear some of the things that we hear, but I appreciate the information, and maybe we are up for a readjustment. So we listen to you. We'll have some discussions about this, down the road, I'm sure. But I want to thank you for the for you folks standing up and speaking your mind. Regarding to the volunteers at the animal shelter, I worked with volunteers for years. The volunteers, in many cases, are the backbones of many organizations. They're an important aspect of many things that we do. It's important, but in order to have volunteers and to run volunteers, you have to have a volunteer program, and you have to draft volunteer job descriptions. You should have interviews, and you should have a selection process if you have volunteers that want to work for you or with you. It's important that volunteers share the mission of the organizations that's recruiting the volunteers. So I'm hoping that we get this in place at the police department for the shelter, so that we can work and that we can actively recruit volunteers that see the mission that we have and then want to work toward the same goal. So thank you for that. And just for Mr. Euchert, if you would, it's kind of an individual issue that you have with your neighbor, so if you wouldn't mind, contact one of our commissioners if you need help. You can certainly contact me, and we can certainly make a request to have code enforcement go back out there again. I don't think it's necessary for you, or it shouldn't be necessary for you to have to come to the full commission every time you have an issue, but certainly we're at your disposal. I am if you want to call, and I'm glad to make a side visit if you do that. All right? Thanks.
Also. Okay. All right, fine. So we'll take a break after you give me a chance. Also, in that regard, Mr. Rickett had called me, and I thought at some particular point this might come before the commission, and I felt it was inappropriate for me to talk about things that I might have inside knowledge of that no one else did. And we did talk about the process, that if it had to come before the commission, what would he be doing, who would he reach out to? So I just wanted to be part of the record on that I just felt that something like that would probably come back to us and would be inappropriate for myself or for that matter, any other commissioner to deal with it, because they might then have to recuse themselves when the vote comes. And if we're 5 strong and one person has to recuse themselves, there's always that possibility of a stalemate, 2-2, and it goes nowhere. So that was one of the reasons. And also, under advice of legal counsel, I was told that since this might be coming back to the commission, that we could talk about the process, but not the problem, the complaint itself. So, and I too like to echo Commissioner Heschler's comments about volunteerism. It's part of my DNA, and as most of you know, or some of you know, I worked with my wife on a national wildlife refuge for 4 years as full-time resident volunteers up the road here a little bit. So I understand the value of volunteerism, but I think also, along with Commissioner Heschler, you have to have a program. It has to be done right. So sometimes those things do take a little time, but I am so thrilled to hear that the concerns and the willingness and wantingness to work for the animals to make their lives better. So thank you for that. So we're going to take a, actually, Josh, if you, Commissioner Frankel, before you leave, if we could just do the consent calendar, it'll take 5 minutes, then we'll take a break, give you a chance to get home, and then you can phone in telephonically, so we'll have your voice so we can continue with the votes, okay? So I need a motion for the consent calendar, which consists, this is number F, 1, Public Utility Advisory Board minutes of December 18, 2017. 2, Airport Advisory Board minutes November 14, 2017. 3, Lodgers Tax Reports, first quarter late filings and second quarter reports. 4, Subrecipient Reports, first quarter late filing and second quarter reports. Number 5, Notice of Candidates and Appointing Precinct Boards for March regular election. And number 8, the JPA with Williamsburg for Police Services and Animal Control Services. I need that motion.
As presented.
I have a motion. I need a second. I have a second by Commissioner Heschler. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? It carries unanimously. We will take a 5-minute break so we can continue. Appreciate your patience. Commissioner Franco's a little under the weather, and we're going to give him a chance to get home, but he can still phone in, and we can continue the meeting because we will have a quorum. Thank you very much. Hey, listen, it's running around. So thank you. We are back in session. The next item is G, ordinances, resolution, zoning. Number 1, discussion action, resolution 2217/18, budget adjustment. And our presenter is our Director of Finance, Ms. Melissa Torres. Please.
What would you like to do first? The resolution first? Yes. Okay.
Good morning, Mayor, Commissioners, Mr. Fuentes. The City of Finance would like to request the budget adjustments for the second quarter. Please note, most of these, including the revenue, are really good things because we basically projected a number and we're already surpassing that number. So with that being said, I'll start with my first one, which is the General Fund 101, increasing 4,000. Fund 101, last number is 35362. Increasing 4,000. Fund 201, 35361, increasing 4,000. Fund 201, 35363, 1,200, increasing. Fund 201, 35365, 1,700. Fund 201 expense, 2,600, increasing. Fund 201, last number is 45555, $10. Fund 293, increasing 1640. Fund 301, last number is 34374, $14.50, increasing. Fund 301, increasing 250. Fund 301, last number's 36373, $12. Fund 302, $960. Fund 302, last number's 38382, $33,685, increase. Fund 305, $43. Fund 306, $80. Fund 306, last number's 36410, $893. Fund 306, $1,800. Fund 309, $8,400. Fund 314, $10,000. Fund 403, $693. Fund 403, last number's 36410, $2,200. Fund 501, $10. Fund 503, $2,000. Fund 504, $1,100. Fund 505, $1,500. Fund 506, $1,100. And Fund 509, $300. So I stand for any questions.
Thank you. Josh, did you hear?
I heard.
Okay.
No questions?
Excellent. Commissioner Hessler? No, I'm fine. I will stand for a motion then, please.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we approve resolution number 2217/18 budget adjustments as presented by Finance Director Torres.
I have a motion by Commissioner Hessler, and I have a second by Commissioner Frankel. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, can we have roll call, please?
Honorable Steve Green?
Yes.
Honorable Sandra Whitehead is absent. Honorable Ralph Hessler?
Yes.
Honorable Kathy Clark is absent. Honorable Joshua Frankel?
Yeah.
Carries unanimously. Thank you. The next item.
Mr. Mayor, before we
Yes,
go
sir.
to the next item, Melissa was going to give a quick overview of the second quarter report.
Oh, excellent.
Do you have copies, Melissa, for the commissioners?
I don't.
Okay.
But I sent you guys that on Monday.
We can kind of just summarize it, the highlights.
Yes, sir. So as Mr. Fuentes stated, we, the finance, want to give you your second quarter report for the city of Searcy. Overall, on this presentation, what I will be doing is summarizing areas that you may have questions or may have concerns. I don't think it's working.
On the left-hand side, make sure it's up to green instead of red. Make sure it's on.
You might need a battery. Oh, there we go.
Push the button in.
There we go.
So I apologize for the delay. So let's go over our revenue and expenditures recap. So the area that we want you guys to recognize on the revenue side that is below the 50% mark. And again, let me kind of back up. As a second quarter, that is our mark. We are looking at the 50% threshold. So the areas that you may scratch your head in regards to us being below the 50% mark are our capital projects, the golf course, and the debt services. The capital projects, the reason for that is we have the animal shelter, the Colonias, the fuel farm, and the TAP grant that is still out, and we're waiting for the reimbursements. So basically, that's really affecting that number. The golf course is another one that is low on the revenue. And right now, we're really looking into this and our other means of solutions in regards to the golf course. The debt service, and you'll see it throughout these presentations, is basically, it's part of our New Mexico Finance Authority. And as you guys recall, one of our audits that we continue to have a struggle with was how we were booking our New Mexico Finance Authority. Well, I'm very pleased to say that is something that we have resolved on our book side. However, on the back side of our new financial system, we're having a little bit of trouble, and we're trying to work through that. So the next slide represents the general fund revenues for the second quarter. The revenue shortfalls, again, below the 50%, is our local or state grants. And again, we have 3 reimbursements that we're waiting: the New Mexico TAP grant, Animal Shelter, and the Veterans Wall, which is a capital appropriation. The New Mexico TAP grant, we are completed with that project. However, the way the New Mexico DOT gives that last payment is we have to complete our punch list and inspection before they release that final payment. The Animal Shelter and the Veterans, that comes from New Mexico DFA, and DFA only pays twice a month, the 1st and the 15th. However, the one thing that I want you to notice that's really high and is positive is our fines and forfeits. And that is due to the municipal court having increases because we are seeing the PD filing more in municipal court. So it's made a tremendous jump in regards to their revenue. On the special revenue side, again, going back to the New Mexico Finance Authority, on Fund 217, that again, we have to work on the back side. But if you look at 201, that is the increase because of the citations being filed in municipal court. Fund 211, we received the full funding from New Mexico DOT for our LEPF project. Fund 301, the impact fees, that one's really hard to project. You know, we base our numbers prior to the fiscal year of our previous number that we had. Fund 305 is our animal shelter. Fund 302 is again interest for New Mexico Finance Authority. Fund 306 is reimbursements for the wastewater project. Fund 314, that is our capital appropriations. Fund 317 and 318 are New Mexico Finance Authority interest that we're accruing. And lastly, Fund 319, that is the ALITA. And as you guys recall, that was last fiscal year that we had the reimbursement and also the expenditures. So let's talk about the prior year versus current GRT for the second quarter. So right away, when we look at this graph, you're going to see that we have a shortfall of $435,760. And so we definitely start scratching our head and saying, you know, what is causing this? Why are we going down this trend? And again, the reason we're going down this trend is that the previous trend was a bonus for us. So we can't get comfortable with what our numbers were last fiscal year. So when you look at last fiscal year and this fiscal year, you see a tremendous discrepancy with the numbers, a great jump. But if you compare apples to apples, which is fiscal 15-16 to 17-18, we're within our means. And not only that, but we've increased it more than 15 and 16.
Melissa, before you move on to the next slide, Mayor, Commissioners, I think it's important to note from this slide, because as you can see, the activity and the increase in the GRT for 16-17 was a lot in part because of the construction with the Veterans Home. So that's why there was a huge receipt in gross receipts tax. This year, obviously, we don't have that anymore. Only the major construction projects, and we all know that construction projects really generate a lot of economic activity for GRT, for other things, lodgers and so forth. So as you can see in 17-18, obviously, as Melissa presented, has declined from what the levels prior to the Veterans Home construction project. So what this really means is, unfortunately, is when we start working on the budget, we're going to be working on the budget based on the figures for 17-18 and maybe some historical figures from 15-16, which will have a significant impact as we start budgeting for all of our departments and what services. So it really is going to become a challenge to make sure what are the priorities moving forward into next fiscal year and what we can afford. But I think it's just really important to note because there's a big difference between last year with construction versus this year. Very little construction.
And just to add to what Mr. Fuentes said in regards to that, you know, when we're looking at our budgets, and even when we're working with our managers, when they are working on their budgets, that's one of the adjustments we really have to make with them, because we have to ensure that they're living within their means, you know, and we have to have reality too, living in our means. I mean, if we base our numbers in 16, 17, we definitely are going to be over our budgets, and our revenue is going to continue to go down and our expenses continue to go up. And that's definitely not the trend we want to go into. So we look at the previous year on the largest tax revenue, and as you can also see, that one is a shortfall of $14,826. And so again, one of our practices that we're trying to do in finance is we're trying to find why these shortfalls are happening. What's the trend that's happening that didn't happen last year? So we definitely audited this revenue, and we were able to find a couple of discrepancies. So I'm hoping to tell you by Q3 that we'll bounce back up because of those discrepancies we noted and needed to fix. So the general fund fiscal year net end, and this kind of just echoes what Mr. Fuentes and I said. If you look, we're notorious that our revenue is always shorter than our expense, and we continue to go down that way. And we definitely need to start looking that we need to go the other way, where our expenses are no more than our revenue, that we're living within our means as our revenue comes in. The second quarter for the actual budget, as you can see on the revenues, we are making more than it was for the second quarter, so we're doing good on that aspect, and the electric is also too, so we are in the black on that. Again, the debt service has to do with our New Mexico Finance Authority. As we go and look at the second revenue budgets for the special revenue, the capital projects, you can see that we are in the red in regards to that. But definitely we know why we are in the red for those. Special revenue is because that's where a lot of our projects are. Just like our capital projects. And then also you have to note we have like the swimming pool in the special revenue too, which has shut down for the last 6 months. So overall, we're doing good. As we look at our fund, enterprise, and general fund, we start again looking at that 50% mark that we want to be within, especially with our expenditures. So the three that are over expense is the fire department, ASD, and our airport. The fire department is because during the first quarter we pay the $42,500 for their fire volunteers. So right off back we pay that. ASD is because we have the internal control officer, and the airport is because they purchase jet fuel. And with the budgets like the airport, jet fuel is one of their biggest purchases that they endure. So definitely that would be something that would affect their budget. On the expenditures, we are well over our projected expenditures. And so this is definitely something that Mr. Fuentes and I are working on, being proactive and trying to get ahead of that. Because our objective is, as Mr. Fuentes said, is that we need to start looking for the future. And as we look for the future, that means that next following budget has to fall with it. And we have to ensure that we have money to carry over to the future. So we definitely are going to go with the city of needs versus wants, and start looking at these savings that we need to start applying. As you look at the expenditures for the second quarter also, your special revenue, again, like I stated, is your fire protection fund, your PD donations, your PD GRT, the library, the veterans wall, the lodger's tax, and then your capital projects, again, are your USDA. And as you can see there, those are definitely areas where we're going to we have more expenditures than revenue coming in. But again, you have your projects that are coming out of this and have pending revenue to receive. And that completes my presentation for the second quarter for the City of Truth and Consequences, and I stand for any questions at this time.
Thank you. Commissioner Frankel, are there any questions?
No, thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Heschler? Yes, sir. I just have one. You talked about on the expenses being proactive. Does that mean we are curtailing all wants on purchasing and just having them go through a process to determine if there is a true need to get on top of these expenses?
Definitely. That's something that we have to do, being proactive. Everybody has their wants. Every department head that Mr. Fuentes and I see has a vision and has a list of what they want. But we have to make those hard decisions and ask, what do they need? Because for them, a new backhoe might be a want for them, but that's just an extra backhoe. And so we have to look at that kind of stuff and definitely make those hard decisions and say, we can't purchase something like that this fiscal year, because just that additional backhoe is not something that we can do right now. Now, if it has safety or something that is going to affect their day-to-day operations, well, definitely we're going to support them and figure out how we're going to be funding that.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right, then moving on, let's see, we took the vote on the resolution, so thank you.
Thank you,
the
sir.
next item is discussion action. We're under G2, variance request to allow a 1995 mobile home onto lot at 623 Garst Street. Our presenter is Susanna Diller, our planner, GIS Tech, proudly accompanied by our building inspector, Robbie Travis.
And Mr. Mayor, let me just make a procedural observation.
I was going to call on you.
Oh, okay.
No, go ahead.
Ordinarily, when we are considering a variance, I would recommend the Battershell process. I think in this situation, though, I think we can dispense with that requirement. I'm looking at the application. It does not really affect setback or parking or traffic or or any other issues that would crop up that might affect the neighbors, for example. So I think there's one situation where you would not need to go through the formality of the Battershell. Although I would suggest that at the end of the presentation by staff that you might want to see if anybody in the audience has any comments to make about it.
Okay, I will take that advice. Thank you. Ms. Diller.
Good morning, Commissioners, Mr. Mayor, City Manager Fuentes. I'm here to present a variance request to allow a 1995 mobile home onto the lot at 623 Garst Street. Mr. Oaks has done significant work to clean up and improve the property at 623 Garst. The mobile home is close to the maximum age allowed by our ordinances, and it is in good condition. Staff feels that approving the variance does not violate the spirit of the mobile home age ordinance. And in your packet, you should have the variance application, the photograph of the mobile home unit in question, and the plan of the property layout. And I stand for any of your questions.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Frankel?
No questions.
Commissioner Heschler?
This mobile home has not been moved yet, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Is the porch attached to the mobile home going to move with the mobile home?
No, I don't believe so. Mr. Oaks is here if he would like to come up and give any comment on that. Hi.
I'm Doug Oaks. No, the add-on on that mobile home is being torn down as we speak. So it will just be the motor home. We would put a small porch in front of the entryway to the mobile home.
And that'll be new construction? Will that be new construction?
Yes, sir.
Okay. How about the skirting for the mobile home?
Whatever the city requires.
Is that going to be replaced, or are you going to transfer?
No, I'm not gonna transfer that, it's trash.
Okay. And I noticed there's a window broken in this motor home. Is that going to be, or is that open, or is that broken?
No window's broken.
Okay. It just looks, in my
So
picture.
now, there's not,
Okay.
there was, I think, and we did fix some windows in there. Yes, we did fix them.
Okay. So from where it looks like in our photo, and it's going to be more attractive when you relocate this thing and set it up?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Oaks, a couple questions. Is this something that you will be living in, or is this going to be a
No,
rental?
This is rental. That's rental property up there.
Okay.
There's a duplex on that piece of property, and there was no mobile home there that was unlivable and unfixable, and we demolished that, tore it down, and this is a big upgrade to what was there.
My only concern is that we passed an ordinance that restricts how old the mobile home can be. And you're the first person who's come to us after that ordinance was approved. And my only hesitation, I appreciate, obviously, you put some energy and effort cleaning up the place. It's probably better than it was before, is that the slippery slope. I know that I saw by your application, even though we're in 2018, the application was in 2017. So that means you're only 2 years off the mark, and probably, I guess you didn't get on the agenda because we might have been filled up and we couldn't do that. So we certainly, don't want to not encourage people to fix up property and not to move into our community. That's the farthest from our mind. My only little concern is that if we say yes here, then the next person comes in with a mobile home that's 24 years old, and then they say, well, your grandfather, you made a variance, why him and not me? And I don't know how to get my hands around that, and maybe we'll just have to deal with that as it comes along. What I would like to, though, ask of either Robbie or Susanna, on the notes to the commission, you talk about the spirit of the mobile home age ordinance. Can you just kind of ease my concerns? What do you mean by the spirit of it?
First, I'd like to respond to your previous comment as well, which is when this ordinance was approved on July 12th, Commissioner Heschler asked what would happen if someone had a unit in good repair that was within a few years of that 20-year mark, and Robbie Travis said that in that situation like this, they could apply for a variance and it would come before the commission, which is how we've ended up here. But in terms of the spirit of the ordinance, we chose that wording carefully because really what it's about is making sure that people aren't bringing old, dilapidated mobile homes into the town, bringing down property values for the city, and being an eyesore. And it was the 20-year mark, as I understand it, was chosen by looking at the age limits surrounding communities have and sort of finding a middle point that people here were comfortable with. And so you had to draw a line somewhere, and 20 was that line. But the spirit of the ordinance, as I understand it, has to do more with the actual units, with the condition of the city and the property.
So the 20 was basically just a benchmark that we can work off of, a touchstone, so to speak. Okay. Convinced me? Yes, Mr. Travis.
Mayor, if I could say one thing too, we have had 3 or 4 others come to us and we turned them down.
Okay.
One was a commercial property, one to set an older mobile home next to it as storage and use for their property. We turned that down, and then I think 2 others that were just too old that we could not allow. So he's the first one to apply for a variance, of course, but there are others that we're trying to control this and handle it that way. So we're not just, everybody go for a variance. No, we're not gonna do that. You know, we really want our town cleaned up. We want to see mobile homes in good condition come into town, and so that's our goal.
I appreciate you being the gatekeepers.
Mayor, if I may.
Commissioner Hessler.
A couple of things that I keep in mind when we offer information or make decisions on something like this is that this mobile home's already within the community. And if we do nothing, it's going to stay there, I would imagine. So it's already there, and so we're going to move it from point A to point B. The other thing is that, and I hope, and you've done this, is there going to be significant improvement if we allow the variance? And if the property has already been cleaned up, and if we improve the situation itself, I'm more inclined to allow it to be moved than I'm not if we don't have that information. So I appreciate you letting us know that the property's been significantly cleaned up. And I appreciate your information is that we get rid of the porch, the front porch, we put new construction on it, maybe put some new siding on it, or new skirting on it, and make it more attractive, because that's what we're trying to accomplish here. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Frankel, are any further questions?
No, thank you.
Commissioner Hessler? Okay, so I will stand for a motion, please.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the variance request to allow the 1995 mobile home onto 623 Garth Street as presented by Susanna Diller, our planner.
Okay, I have a motion by Commissioner Hessler. I need a second. I will second that motion. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Okay, it carries. Thank you, sir. Good luck. Appreciate it. H1, discussion action, appointment of lodgers tax board members, Ms. Cantor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners. We currently have all of our 5-member lodger board vacant, and our former tourism director has worked at getting some applications submitted, so we're working off of some of those that we have. And I'd also like to add that I received yesterday or Monday an application from Teresa King, who's the general manager for Sierra Grande. So with that, we have applications attached for Jake Forstner from the Riverbend Hot Springs, which the requirement for that board is that there has to be 2 from the lodging industry, 2 from the tourist industry, and 1 from the general public. So with that, we have Jake Forstner from Riverbend Hot Springs, Teresa King from Sierra Grande. Those both would be from the lodging industry representatives. We have Linda De Marino from Main Street, TRC, which is considered the tourist industry, and we have Moshe Koenig for the general public from a business owner. So with that, the lodgers tax season is upon us, where they have to really get started with that board. And being a brand new board, we don't have any veterans on there, so we do need to do some training with them and show them, you know, what their responsibilities would be before it's time to designate lodgers tax funds this year. So with that, I open it up and stand for any questions.
Thank you. Commissioner Frankel, any questions?
I appreciate everyone applying for the positions. I'd like to see those slots filled. I think that Linda De Marino still got her plate full with Main Street, but all the other applicants sound great.
Okay, excellent. And as the past chair of the lodgers tax, obviously you feel very strongly about that. Commissioner Hessler.
Yeah, I'm pleased with the list of applicants, and I would defer to Mr. Frankel.
Okay, excellent.
I noticed one thing, looking at I just noticed this now while I'm sitting here, on the application from Moshe Koenig, it says, interested in serving as a member of the Public Art Board. Unless I'm misunderstanding something.
Just one second.
I think that this may have been sent to him, and it automatically has that in there, and he may not have changed it. But it was my understanding he was interested in the lodgers tax board.
And Mr. Mayor and Commissioners, and I think as Renee pointed out, we are getting close to starting that process again. One of the primary duties for the Lodgers Tax Advisory Board will be to look at the guidelines for the allocation of funds. Contrary to Mr. Townsend's statement, this is something that will be recommended by them to be adopted by the commission, and it is those guidelines that will be implemented when those allocations are awarded. So staff will simply be just following the guidelines and making sure they're complying with those guidelines. So having these applicants, and especially the majority, having a quorum appointed would be good for us to get started on that process.
And Attorney Rubin, if you take a look at the bottom line on Mr. Koenig's application, I'll just read you the last sentence. So I want to see the town prosper and succeed in putting heads in beds.
I see that.
So,
I know.
But it's a good catch, because you're absolutely right. It does say public art. I didn't even catch that.
I just noticed that you're always sitting here.
Right. So can we vote for all four at one time, or do we have to take each one individually?
Are there four of them?
Yes.
Okay.
We have an additional application that was handed in.
I don't see a reason why I can't do them all at once, so I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so I will stand.
See how it goes.
Okay.
Yes, I may hear from Commissioner Frankel, and he mentioned the three. Do you have any further information, Mr. Frankel? You said something about Linda DiMarino having her plate full. Is it your indication that you're not going to recommend her, or are you going to recommend her? What's your thinking?
I wouldn't recommend her at this time. I mean, as our Main Street director, that should be a full priority, and I'd like to see some other volunteers on this board.
So Mayor, I think we probably should.
Separate. Okay.
And then separate them out.
I agree. Okay. All right, so then let's take them just the way they're printed here, and I'll make Teresa King the last one, since that was the last application. So I need a motion for approval for Jake Forstner to serve on the Truth and Consequences Lodgers Tax Board.
So moved, Mayor.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. A motion by Commissioner Heschler and a second by Commissioner Frankel. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Carries unanimously. I have, the next name is Linda DiMarino, representing Main Street. I just would like to add that Jake Forstner was from Riverbend Hot Springs. So I need a motion on Linda DiMarino. It fails for lack of a motion. The next item is Moshe Koenig, tourism, general public business owner. That's Dustin Glitter. I will stand for a motion.
So moved, Mayor.
I have a motion by Commissioner Heschler, a second by Commissioner Frankel. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Carries unanimously. Thank you. And the last one is Teresa King, General Manager of the Sierra Grande Spa and Lodge. I will stand for a motion.
So moved, Mayor.
We have a motion by Commissioner Heschler, a second by Commissioner Frankel. Is there any other concerns, questions, comments? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Carries unanimously. And I thank you. And I would just like the record to show that I have had the privilege of serving on the Main Street Board since its almost inception, the new inception, and also now am ex officio on that board. And I do appreciate the job that Linda DiMarino does as the Executive Director of Main Street. And Main Street is absolutely critical for our future as we move forward, because they are focused 100% on the historic Hot Springs District, upgrading that and making that more of a viable part of our community. And I think Linda does a wonderful job as the Executive Director. And even though I'd love to see her on this board, if she wasn't the Executive Director of Main Street, I would like to go on the record as appreciating Commissioner Frankel's remarks that I think that she best serves this community in this city as the executive director of Main Street. Okay, thank you very much. Moving on. The next item is use of mobile home on airport property. Mark left, please.
Good morning, Mayor and Commission. Juan Renee. Recently, we purchased a mobile home out at the airport, and we have come to a conclusion between the staff and the Airport Advisory Board on what would be the best use for that. And working with the police department, we believe that having a uniformed officer live on site at the airport would be a very valuable thing. If you look at the capital that's at the airport between our buildings and all the airplanes within the hangars, it is the largest concentration of capital investment anywhere in the city. So it stands, it makes sense to have security on site. We'll work out the arrangement with that officer for responsibilities. He will also do some improvements to the mobile home itself. So the city will furnish paint and whatnot, and he'll be happy to do that. I've already discussed that with him. Chief, do you have any comments on?
No, I just echo what you said. It just makes good sense to have security there. You never know what we have had years in the past, some vandalism. Hopefully the price of fuel stays where it's at. But I know that when gas was $4 a gallon, we got a lot of fuel debt.
So, question, anything else, Mark, before I turn it over to the commission?
No, sir.
Okay. Any questions, concerns?
A couple of questions.
Commissioner Ashley, yes, sir.
We had briefly discussed the utilities. Will the utilities be granted to this individual? Will he pay for utilities? How's that going to work?
Our thought process is he pays for his own utilities.
Okay.
So we're just supplying the residents. He'll have his own utilities. So it's metered separately. It has its own propane tank. The water is furnished by the city because it's already part of our water system.
Okay, well, that's my second question. How is the water going to be furnished and what's going to happen with that? Will there actually be a contract manager for Fuentes or with this individual?
Mr. Mayor, Commissioner Heschler, yes, we would have to have some sort of agreement because also part of that would have to be documented for HR purposes.
Right.
So there will be something in place.
Okay.
And that, I'm not sure if that's already been determined.
Mayor, Commissioners, Mr. Fuentes, this is something that we discussed at the department head. My background coming from an agency that houses law enforcement, we had a contract that we utilized, and so that's something we're looking at shadowing in.
Great. We're on the same page. Thank you.
Commissioner Frankel, any further questions?
No, sir.
Okay. Mark, I do, just one quick question. Law enforcement agency, is that only TRC PD, or if we don't have a TRC person who wants to move out there, would that be available to state police and or a sheriff, someone working the sheriff's department?
Correct. That's why we left it open-ended, because perhaps the relationship with the officer that's currently being thought of maybe terminates in 6 months because he gets a job someplace else. We would like to make that available to a state park representative, law enforcement from state park, state police, sheriff department. So any one of those would be fine by us.
Okay. Any further questions? Hearing none, I will stand for a motion, please. Now, I think maybe the motion should be, and correct me if I'm wrong, maybe to authorize staff to move forward with this, to get the necessary documentation and things such as that. So, if you want to.
I'll give it a shot.
Go ahead. From what I'm mumbling along here.
I'd like to make a motion there that we authorize the city manager and staff to move forward in making ready that mobile home at the airport for occupancy and developing that supporting documentation to allow, for contracts and so forth, to allow a staff person or a police person to live in there to provide security for the airport.
Okay. I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. 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 Carries unanimously. Thank you. Next item, number 3, approval of airport annual lease renewals. Mr. Bleff.
This has been discussed at the Airport Advisory Board meeting, the last session that we had. Currently, how we do the airport leases, basically they're 12-month leases that occur when that person takes possession of a unit. So on any given month, we probably have maybe 5 that need to be renewed each and every month all throughout the year. So moving forward, what we'd like to do is to have a single renewal date. So we have one effort that's done by the clerk's office to get all the renewals done and in place. During this process, I'm meeting with Mr. Rubin to go through our existing leases to fix some items that are in there that don't address airworthiness certificates as well as insurance, that we don't currently require these hangar tenants to have insurance within our current leases. So we're going to go take this opportunity of not only just doing a mass renewal, but also fixing some items using best practices throughout the country.
Make it easier on staff. All right, questions? Commissioner Frankel?
No, none.
Commissioner Heschler?
Hey, I understand the reason for what you're trying to achieve here. I don't know if this is an appropriate time or not to discuss the fees that we charge for these hangars. Should that be on a separate topic, or?
Mr. Mayor, Commissioner Heschler, that is correct. That would be separate, a separate issue.
Okay.
I think, as you can see, with Mark presenting these 3 items that came before the advisory board, because there are recommendations, commissioners authorizing them, then now it's staff to execute and provide, process of necessary, whether documents, leases, and I believe the next thing will be, kind of revisiting the fees, which will have to be adopted by resolution.
Sure.
Right.
Okay.
And that will be coming
sometime in
back.
the future, we'll have that opportunity, then I would have no further questions.
Mark, are we fully rented at the airport?
Yes. We have about 5 in our waiting list right now, and we're actively recruiting companies to build more hangars.
Oh, excellent. And just one last question, because I know at one time I knew the answer to this. I'm hoping it's not the same answer. At one time, those hangars were not being used for planes. They would be used for storage of boats and everything else. I mean, are there planes in those hangars?
Yes, the majority have planes. We are weeding through. Now, with this process, we will be extending most likely a month-to-month lease for those folks until they can show us airworthiness certificates, liability insurance, and a current inspection to ensure they do have a plane in their hangar. So we will not offer these new leases to anyone that has a boat. This is not our goal, is to have boat storage.
Okay, thank you. If there are no further questions, I will stand for a motion, please.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the lease renewal request by the airport to renew these leases every February, and to give the option to prospective tenants, depending on what time of year they come in, to have a new lease of either 6 months or 18 months.
I have a motion by Commissioner Heschler. I need a second.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Frankel. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Carries unanimously. Thank you. And last, discussion action, land leases for vehicles on airport property.
We currently have a need for some pilots that need a place to park their vehicle inside the fence. They either have homes in Elephant View, TRC, that they fly in from some other place, don't necessarily need a hangar, but they need to have a car available for them once they get here. We have some land that's located within the airport that's not particularly usable for any kind of hangar development. However, the city stores some vehicles on that piece of property. This is to the east of the LaFont hangar, and we can use that for a small vehicle or an oversized vehicle, perhaps, if they have an airplane that's hangared here, but their go-home vehicle is too big to fit into the hangar. So we will do a case-by-case, because once again, we don't want to turn this into boat storage or anything like that. This is intended for aviation use. that we have people that have legitimate use to have a vehicle conveniently located within the fence at the airport. Plus, we'll gain revenue on this as well.
Would they sign a liability waiver? I mean, what happens if someone just picks up a rock for some malicious reason, cracks someone's windshield?
We'll be doing a standard lease, just like with the hangars, and we'll be talking to that with Jay next week.
Questions? Commissioner Frankel?
No questions?
Commissioner Hessler?
No, sir.
Okay, I'll stand for a motion.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we allow the municipal airport to develop a parcel of land for future parking of vehicles for tenants of the airport, and to have a fee structure in place so that they can collect fees for that service.
I have a motion by Commissioner Hessler. I need a second.
Second?
Second by Commissioner Frankel. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Carries unanimously. Thank you, Mark. Appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
Next item, last item, discussion action, extension of golf course contract with Terry Taylor LLC, and Melissa Torres, our Department Director of Finance, and the wonderful Department of Finance will be our presenter.
Thank you, thank you. Mayor, Commissioner Heschler, Mr. Fuentes, in regards to this, we are not proposing to do an extension as of today, but we wanted to highlight what we are doing. At this time, the reason why we want to delay this is because there's areas that we definitely have in concern of, and we want to ensure that we take care of it prior to doing any kind of extension. Right now, myself, Mr. Gaylord, Mr. Fuentes are working with our attorneys, Mr. Rubin and Mr. Appel, in regards to this contract. Where it kind of makes it a little sticky for us is we also have our liquor license that is a custodian of Mr. Terry Taylor. So our liquor license is getting ready to expire, and we definitely don't want that to happen. But I was able to make contact with Mrs. Garcia with the New Mexico regulations, and she was definitely willing to work with us and advised us that we had until February 28th to get back with her in writing, just saying how we're going to pursue. If we're going to pursue where we're going to extend the contract, then what we'll do is we have to have the contract signed prior to renewing the license, all one package. If we're not, and we're going to take control 100% of that liquor license, then all we have to do as a city is respond to that's what we're going to move forward to do. So at this time, I stand for any questions.
So with that, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners, I think with that information presented, we'll recommend the City Commission just to table this item to get staff to, do some additional work and contact Mr. Taylor and then bring it back at a future meeting.
Okay, before the 28th, I would take it.
Right.
Yes, sir.
I guess that's going to ask when the contract expires and if we're okay.
Well, unfortunately, the contract has already expired, Commissioner Heschler. It expired back in October.
And are we still able to maintain this property with Mr. Taylor there?
Yes, yes. I think we'll go, as month to month.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. And we checked with our attorneys. That's what exactly we are at right now. We're on a month-to-month based on our clause that we have on the existing contract.
Yeah, the parties have been acting until the contract's in effect. I mean, he's still providing services, and we've been honoring our part. So yes, by the conduct of the parties, the implication would be the contract is still in effect.
And Mr. Mayor, Commissioner, I did I met with Mr. Taylor yesterday and discussed with him some of the concerns, and he will be coming before the commission at a future meeting.
Okay. So the license, Ms. Torres, just so I think I understand, I just want to make sure I understand. The license is in the name of the city. Mr. Taylor is just I think you used the word custodian.
He is the custodian, yes.
So we are the renewing agent.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Good. All right, very good. Okay, so then I will stand for a motion, please.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we table any extension of the golf course contract to Mr. Terry Taylor, until we get a chance to visit the issues and have a discussion.
I thought it was a postpone instead of a table.
And postpone, if that's a better word.
Sure.
We'll postpone it.
I have a motion. Was that a second, Commissioner Frankel? Okay.
Yes, please.
I have a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Commissioner? Okay, carries unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item, reports, city manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Commissioner, I'll be very brief. As you all are already aware, I will be traveling to Santa Fe tomorrow for the NMFA board meeting regarding the Sierra Vista Hospital. Last week, I did submit our legislative request to the legislative office. So, we'll just have to wait for the 30-day session to, for those bills to be processed and see. Hopefully, there'll be some capital outlay. I will, if I have an opportunity, I will stop by and visit with Senator Smith and Representative Dow in regards to one request, and hopefully we can get some money there. In light of some of the questions, concerns regarding code enforcement, animal control, I'll certainly be meeting with the chief again, and we may be having a follow-up meeting with some of the commissioners, Mayor, Commissioner Heschler, to kind of address some of those issues moving forward. And with that, time for any questions.
Any questions of the manager? Hearing none. City Attorney, sir.
Yeah, and I'll actually elaborate a little bit further on what the City Manager Fuentes just said. There were some comments made during the public comment section from volunteers, and the implication seemed to be that the police department was not willing to accept their help. And I visited with Chief Apodaca and Lieutenant Baker, and as a general rule, we're always delighted to accept help from the public, of course. But in this case, there were some concerns, and one of them was a legal concern about the question of liability. And I understand from talking to Lieutenant Baker, she did call it self-insurance fund. And if a lawsuit is filed, likely there would not be coverage on that. And that's something that we can talk about. I understand there's a suggestion about a waiver being signed, but I guess the question then would become, would the waiver be, a totally foolproof document to protect the city? So these are one of the things that we were talking about, and I know the Chief, you want to say a couple things about this, so I was going to let the Chief say a word or two, if that's all right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, basically, we came to the consensus that in the inception of this animal shelter opening, I do have animal control implemented in helping out initially, and eventually, somewhere down the road, when we get a better assessment of the cost, we may look into hiring a part-time helper. So Sabrina's not going to be there thrown to the wolves by herself, by no means. Between animal control, myself, and Lieutenant Baker, we are going to make sure that the animals are cared for, that the whole operation is overseen. So, and to revisit and through legal, we'll look back into the volunteer program. But there are some other issues that we have concerns with that I don't think are appropriate to be discussed at this time.
Okay.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, just to kind of support and follow up on those comments, we did have a similar arrangement with volunteers with regards to the pool. We did have an incident, and I believe one of the parties was a volunteer. So there are some legitimate liability concerns there, and I think that as much as we like to think that waivers make us feel good and work, the reality is that they don't hold much water when it goes to a court or when a lawsuit is filed. So I think there's more work to be done, and as the chief pointed out, I think initially right now we're just trying to get the operations up and running, and then figure out what the best way we can accommodate that. But we always want to err on the side of caution and make sure that we are consulting with our insurance company, because in the event something happens, we will be the ones on the hook. Thank you.
Anything else, Attorney Rubin?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Chief, anything else? No. Okay. Commissioner Heschler?
Sir.
Commissioner Frankel? Okay. Real quick, we're out of here. Kudos to Jesus and his group. We had an incident, as you probably saw on the front page of the Sentinel, and quick response saved the city a lot of money and a lot of people a lot of aggravation. So thank you very much, Jesus, on that. I probably should have done this in response to public comment, and I didn't, so I'm going to do it right now, and I'll be quick. We heard some comments to the extent that the city, the commission operates in a vacuum, that we don't listen, that we don't hear. that almost that we have our own ideas, we come in here and damn the torpedoes, and we're going to do what we're going to do, and the public doesn't matter. And nothing could be farther from the truth. And I just want to go on record as saying that in this particular instance where we had this election yesterday, this was years in the making, years of public comment. Mr. Fenn was given 15 minutes at a city, I think it was the last city commission meeting, to put forth his case on his position. So I just want the listening public and our one reporter here, Chuck, and I think past history will bear me out that we do listen. Our votes are not going to make everyone happy all the time. That's just not the way the world goes. But if our votes are made honestly, with no money coming into our pocket, with no gain, where we have done our homework, then I think that's all you can ask. If you don't like the way we vote, it's called the ballot box. But to say that we just kind of run roughshod over the public, I can't tolerate that statement, because in my personal opinion, after being up here for 10 years, that is a not true statement. We hold workshops. We hold general public workshops in relationship to where would you like us to move the community, and we hold those either here or in the Civic Center. So sure, we run because we want to serve the public and do the best job we can. But to say that we do not listen is not a true statement, in my opinion. That is the end of my report, and I will ask for a motion for adjournment. I will second that. Commissioner Frankel, feel better, please.
Thank you. Good night.
Okay, thank you.
All right.